Time to re-up YouTube. Today is a special day. We're gonna talk about how one particular player basically destroyed an NBA franchise. Because when you look throughout history, you have plenty of players that own teams. Reggie Miller owns the Knicks, Michael Jordan owns the Knicks also, LeBron James owns the Celtics, Jason Tatum owns the Sixers. I mean, I can go on and on and on, but I think you guys get the point. There's one particular player though that I just decided to make this video about, and as you guys can see from the title and thumbnail, it's Steph Curry, as he owned the Houston Rockets and basically destroyed their nucleus of James Harden and Mike D'Antoni. And I know some of you guys are gonna say, no, it was the Lakers that broke up Mike D'Antoni and James Harden. Wrong. It was definitely the Golden State Warriors led by Steph Curry. Because the Lakers definitely put the finishing touches on the Rockets, but let's be serious here. It all started with what Steph Curry did to them in 2015. But before we get started, you guys make sure you drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and press that bell for post notifications to stay up to date with the latest content on the Young Mustard channel.
My pleasure to present you Steph Curry with the 2014-15 Kia MVP Award.
Now, as a Steph Curry fan myself, it really does bother me that a lot of people look at the stats of Steph Curry and James Harden and just automatically assume Harden was robbed because Steph Curry had less points, rebounds, and assists as his averages, while blatantly ignoring that Steph Curry was playing less minutes than James Harden, and I mean a significantly amount of less minutes, while being far more efficient everywhere on the court than James Harden, at the free throw line, at the rim, in the mid-range, and certainly from behind the arc. And when you throw in the fact that Steph Curry wasn't even playing in a lot of fourth quarters, it really makes you think, why was Harden even really a conversation for this award outside of the fact that he had a lesser team? And that's fair if it's your argument, but you can't sit there and say that Curry robbed Harden just because of that argument alone, especially when you're just going to ignore all the other factors that I just brought to the table. So right then and there, Curry winning that MVP over James Harden, that was just step one of his conquest over the Rockets organization. I'm gonna be honest with you, taking that first MVP from the hands of their star player. And right there, in that moment, when Curry was holding the MVP trophy, was when the hatred inside of the heart of so many Houstonians was born for Stephen Curry. This was the beginning of, I think, like the 3 or 4 MVPs that James Harden was so-called robbed of, and that's a convo for another discussion. But then you fast forward into the postseason, and my goodness, it only gets better for me as a Curry fan, I ain't gonna lie. Because after James Harden got carried by Josh Smith and Corey Brewer in an elimination game against the Clippers in the semifinals of the Western Conference, Curry then proceeds to show him what a real MVP is made of, with averages of 31 points a game, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists, along with 2 steals, shooting 51% from the field, 49% from 3, 81% at the free throw line, and an insane true shooting percentage of 68%. And it's crazy because when James Harden was in that elimination game 5, he pulled a Jared Allen. He said the lights were just too bright for him, as he had a measly 14 points, 2 of 11 from the field, 0 of 3 from 3, and had 12 turnovers. This is the man that was supposed to win the MVP over Steph Curry? Oh, please. And then Curry obviously goes on, wins the championship, the first of 4, and the story is over. Or so we thought. Because run it back next year, Curry has another sensational season, arguably the best offensive season in NBA history as far as the regular season goes, captures his 2nd straight MVP, the first ever unanimous MVP in NBA history, breaks his record again for the most 3-pointers in a season, this time on some insane shooting splits of 50, 45, and 90. Ridiculous, I know. But unfortunately, Steph Curry gets hurt in the first round, and I'm not gonna lie to you, that hurt my soul. I mean, this injury obviously lingered for him throughout the rest of the playoffs, and it's tough, I'm not gonna lie, because it probably cost them a championship. Despite that though, the Warriors dispatched of the Rockets in 5 games, while Harden had a pretty mediocre series by his standards again. I mean, it's playoff Harden, is it that surprising at this point? But then we fast forward to 2018, because unfortunately in 2017, after KD joined the Warriors, the Rockets, they failed miserably. In a game without Kawhi Leonard, James Harden chose to have the worst playoff performance of his life. I mean, the man was so bad, people thought he purposely threw the game because he had some money on it. Despite that though, the Warriors would then go on to win the NBA championship, going 16-1 throughout the whole playoffs. Steph Curry with another historic season for the books, and playoffs I should say. And because the Warriors were so dominant, so many teams were making moves. Anthony Anthony Davis had DeMarcus Cousins as his second guy. Jimmy Butler went to the Minnesota Timberwolves, but one of the biggest moves and shocking moves of the offseason was Chris Paul being traded to the Houston Rockets. And to the Rockets' credit that season, they established themselves as one of the greatest offenses of that generation, winning 65 games in the regular season and finishing second in points per game and first in offensive rating. Harden's amazing scoring ability in isolation was one of the most unstoppable things already in the NBA, and he just took it up a notch. And when you package that with how great he is in the pick and roll, his court vision, passing ability, coupled now with CP3 next to him, one of the better playmakers in the NBA and of all time, to be quite honest with you, who also specializes in that PNR, it was really a perfect fit, as either one of them could rest for periods of time and play with the bench unit, and the role players around them fit like a glove. Players like Trevor Ariza, Eric Gordon, PJ Tucker, and Clint Capella. They went on to finish first in the Western Conference and have the best record in the NBA, 65-17 to be exact, and James Harden finally captured his first and only MVP. So this was really the opportunity that the Rockets had been waiting for. They got a co-star alongside James Harden. James was finally able to capture his first MVP, and they had a regular season that was for the books. Unfortunately though, with a little bit of bad luck mixed in with James Harden's shooting woes in games 6 and 7, the Rockets folded yet again as Chris Paul got hurt in game 5, James Harden shot like bricks in game 6 and 7, and Steph Curry torched them in game 7 as well. They packed those Rockets up and they shipped them back to Houston where they came from, went on to win another championship in 2018, and Steph Curry's ring count went from 2 to 3. Now I know Rockets fans, I know what you guys are saying.
What about Chris Paul? What about KD? They were there. It's not fair.
Well, have no fear, because 2019 is here. The Rockets had a little bit of a slow start, but eventually won over 50 games in the regular season. And on the Warriors side of things, despite them having so much talent on the roster, unfortunately it was in disarray because KD and Draymond had their beef, and all the speculation going around about KD potentially leaving the Golden State Warriors was being asked every single week, it felt like. Nonetheless though, both of these teams would match up in the second round of the playoffs in 2019, and once again the basketball gods show up to rectify their mistake in 2018 with Chris Paul being hurt by taking KD out of this series with an Achilles strain. Now obviously it will lead up to him tearing his Achilles in the finals, but at the time it just looked like a minor Achilles injury and he was out for the remainder of the series. So you would think with an opportunity like this at James Harden and Chris Paul's feet, a chance to rectify their previous loss the year before. I mean, KD averaged 30 on the Houston Rockets the year before in the Western Conference Finals. Now that guy is removed from the equation, and unlike the other years like in 2016 or 2015, this isn't as deep of a roster as those two seasons, and you now have a better roster compared to those years as the Houston Rockets. But unfortunately, like I said, this was the beginning of the end of the Rockets. Curry put the dagger in these niggas, and LeBron just finished it off in the next season. Because with KD gone, in the second half of game 5, what did Steph Curry do? He scored 20 points, which included a fourth quarter in which the Houston Rockets star duo of James Harden and Chris Paul got outscored by Steph Curry alone, as Curry had 12 points in the fourth on 43% from the field and 67% from 3. But if you're Houston, even though you lost that game, you have one more game to go. Game 6, though you're down 3-2, you're at home. You have that advantage. And as I mentioned earlier, there's no KD this time. And after a first half where Steph Curry is held scoreless, shooting 0 of 5 from the field, and the game is tied, one would think that the Rockets are in the driver's seat to win this game and push it to a game 7 if they can just keep up the momentum in the second half. But unfortunately, the momentum went in favor of the Golden State Warriors, as Steph Curry had the performance of his life in that second half. With 33 points on 9 of 15 shooting from the field, 44% from 3, made all 11 of his free throws. Once again, this man outscored James Harden and Chris Paul, but not for a quarter this time, for an entire half. And the 33 piece includes a fourth quarter where he had 23 points, 6 of 8 from the field, which is 75%, 60% from 3, to be specific 3 of 5, and from the free throw line he made all 8 of his attempts. Curry was the definition of a flamethrower that night. He could not be stopped. I remember watching that game with my friends, and oh my god, the despair and sadness in the room was through the roof. But me, I was turning up. I was chilling because you guys know I love my boy Steph, so I'm gonna root for him throughout the good and the bad. And the reason I say that this was the beginning of the end for the Houston Rockets and Curry put the dagger and LeBron finished it off was because in the offseason, look at the drastic changes they made. They decided to trade Chris Paul for Russell Westbrook, and right then and there, the Rockets' chances of winning a championship just completely went out the roof. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, even I had a little bit of faith that they can make this small ball thing work because they eventually traded Clint Capella and had PJ Tucker at the 5, but unfortunately we all saw how that worked out as Russell Westbrook turned into Russell Westbrook again in the playoffs. And that was the end of James Harden in Houston, as in the offseason him and Westbrook demanded a trade and they were sent to Washington and Brooklyn respectfully. And that is how Steph Curry destroyed, burned, and completely owned the Houston Rockets for half a decade. But you guys let me know your opinions down below in the comment section. Do you believe that Steph Curry owns the Rockets? Let me know. I want to hear what you guys think. Y'all stay safe and have a blessed day. I'm out. Peace.